Hi, it's Winton Churchill with the Barefoot Consultants, and I'd like to welcome you to our Friday afternoon now by a few minutes in the Central Time Zone uh, question and answer session. If you're checking in, I see a few people are checking in there. Be sure and tell us where you're calling in from, and always fun to know that. If you have any questions right off the bat, be sure and put those into the system, into the chat window, and we'll take a look at those. And for all of those of you that are joining as the recording version of the broadcast, the chat window remains active and we monitor that. So if you have any questions in there, we're happy to jump back and go ahead and look at that. So be sure and let us know if you have a question, even if you're watching the recording. We'll respond to that and do our best to get you squared away on that. So lots of good stuff going on, lots of freelancing news, really, with as we edge out of the pandemic. It's lots of businesses getting back to business, and so freelancing work, companies need help writing new policies, complying with training requirements of their staff. There's a lot of online training that we're seeing coming up, and so lots of very good things coming up in the world of freelancers. So as we fish our way out of the pandemic. And so today we're going to talk about some of the post pandemic strategies for freelancers. What kind of work is out there? Where do you want to focus? Where do you want to look really into the world of freelancing, where some of these jobs might exist? And so we're going to go over three different areas. And of course, one of the big areas is every company, almost every company, is having to change the way that they communicate with their employees, with their clients, and that kind of thing. So this is creating lots of new customer service activity. And of course, the emphasis here is on not being in contact with a client, but contacting them virtually. But then again, contacting them virtually in a way that is easy for the client, easy for the employee to access things. So we see a lot of jobs where people are actually training on different topics. The company will say, hey, we've got a new set of health guidelines for employees working in the office. We really need to emphasize the social distancing. We need to emphasize the reduced capacity. Not everybody comes back at once. Sometimes people are working on split shifts. So there might be a shift now that comes in at 7 o'clock in the morning and leaves at 3. And then some people come in at 3. And so the office is never over 60% capacity. So this is really driving the need to do all kinds of training in that regard. So important to understand that. And if you've been in a company, like I was at a number of different companies over the years, and as a manager, there's always something coming along that you would get a slide deck on, and you would have to bring employees up to speed on. It could be, in some cases, new regulations. In some cases, it could be a new product offering. It could be a change in your service offering. And if you generally have the skills to train on that, the kind of jobs that are emerging are typically where a company will provide you with a slide deck, and they will want you to give that slide deck, and they will provide you with instructions on how to give the slide deck. They already have some experience in many cases with it. They will provide you with answers to common questions that employees have when they see the slide deck and that kind of thing. The other thing is doing this kind of presenting and recording it for clients or customers. That is also an area where we expect to see quite a bit of growth because obviously you have to retrain your customers now on how to partake in your services. If you're a restaurant or you're a travel oriented company, every I was talking to one freelancer that's doing a lot of this training around things like B&Bs, where they're having to train staff about how to maintain uh, more cleanliness. They're talking to the people that rent places from them about how to, stay sort of COVID safe and what they need to do. Just reminding that there's these supplies are there for you to use them, and here's where there's a drawer and there's some masks, a box of masks in the drawer, and just that kind of thing. There's a whole new level of how to take maximum advantage of your vacation, when you're renting an Airbnb. And there seem to be quite a few people that are now venturing out and particularly looking for that sort of B&B experience. They don't necessarily want to go into a big hotel where people are going in and out, but they like the idea of taking off and going to the country and renting a cottage on a lake or that kind of thing. Certainly a great thing to do as we're coming out of lockdown. And so another good example of the kind of thing that you might do. Let's see here. So we've talked about customer service. That's really a big area, retraining, that sort of thing. An adjacent audience to that is make me a presentation that helps me retrain or train my employees and my clients around that. And sometimes with that presentation, they'll want you to help create a checklist. They get a packet from the government and they say, going forward, yes, this is what we need to do. And they need help putting that together because in a lot of cases, their staffs are not fully reconstituted, you might say. Yes, Greg, this is October 30th, the day before Halloween. So you're on a live call. And for those of you just checking in, if you want to drop where you're checking in from, that's always delightful to know. Let me know where you're checking in from. Appreciate that. Very good. So creating those PowerPoint presentations, creating those communications, creating those checklists, taking the health compliance regulations and turning those into internal checklists, mapping that onto the business, sort of form fitting it. What do we need to communicate to the people coming into our places of business? I just got back from voting in the U.S. and of course, they have the 6 foot distancing on the floor and rope lines to make sure you get to the right place and hand sanitizer, every 6 feet so you can keep your hands sanitized. So very different. So I see Miriam checking in from Webster, New York. Good to see you. And that's great. I bet it's a little chilly up there. I'm in Dallas right now, and the snow got as close as about 100 miles away the other night. It's warming up a little bit today. And Donna is checking in from Ontario, Canada. So that's great. Good to see you coming in. I don't know that I know how to pronounce that. Mississauga, I guess, would be as close as I can get to that. And yeah, that's even chillier probably up in that neck of the woods. Although I have done some extensive work over the years, some training up in north of Detroit in Canada. And I was kind of surprised when I started going there to realize that there's a lot of parts of Canada that are further south than parts of the U.S. Did not realize that going forward. And there's Robert checking in. Good to see you. And on day 228 of lockdown. But Robert does diving sorts of trips in Roatan. And I know they're back diving because I've seen some of Robert's beautiful photographs. And if you get a chance to take a look at those, you can do that. All right, Donna, help me with this. I'm going to try and pronounce it. Miss Isag Saga. Miss Isaga. Is that close? I see Joel's checking in. I do know Pueblo. I'm a little bit better with Pueblo, Colorado. So great. Okay, very good. All right, good to see a great crowd on the line. So today we're talking about some of the opportunity areas for freelancers going forward. Now, one of the great things about the jobs coming out of the pandemic is they're sort of those simple kind of Microsoft Office jobs or telephone jobs, or it's funny. I was talking with a buyer the other day who's buying customer service help online, and in their business, they really need to talk to their clients. It's not somebody they can send an email or text or that kind of thing. And thank you, Donna. They have to have a conversation with people because there's a few questions they have to ask. And they have had a problem hiring customer service agents because a lot of them tend to skew towards the younger side. And he said he loves it when he gets a baby boomer who can actually ask questions and explain things in a conversation. And to some degree, that is a lost skill, or certainly a diminishing skill. The ability to have a conversation and make it understand what's happening. So just an interesting perspective there on that. So, and so sometimes I get questions about, well, gee, why do I want to work on these networks doing simple jobs that, would take Microsoft Office? I mean, when I was a manager, I had, one or two people that I always would delegate those kind of jobs to, over the years and that kind of thing. And they don't understand how online freelance networks work. And frankly, a lot of people have an ego problem. They're saying, hey, I used to make X many dollars an hour where I used to work. I'm not going to, ratchet myself down to doing a PowerPoint presentation for $20 an hour, and it's not about you doing a PowerPoint presentation for $20 an hour. It's about you serving somebody at that level and getting a recommendation that helps elevate your profile and your desirability in the online system. And this is a very critical piece that a lot of people miss, is this idea of you kind of have to humble yourself as you go into this. If you were a vice president of a company, nobody goes into Upwork and says, hey, I need a vice president. They give you a little tiny audition job. And they say, we want you to make a 5-slide or a 10-slide PowerPoint presentation. Or we want you to write a script that's 1 page long that would inform people of a certain kind of information. And they will give those out to 3 or 4 different people and, look at what comes back. And they will look at the results and they would say, well, this person clearly understands our business and we will hire this person. And these 2 or 3 people over here, one clearly doesn't understand our business. 2 did an okay job, but given the choice, we want this person that really has this deep knowledge in a certain area. So that's what we're going for here. So very important to do that. I just got a little note. So if you're enjoying this or finding value in it, if you'd hit the like button, that helps other people see this. It helps, the the gods at Facebook, the algorithm says, hey, we'll share this around, that kind of thing. So be sure and hit the like button or the love button. That's my favorite button to use these days. I give lots of love when I find something is really helpful to me. So that's good. And Greg is saying some nice things about $1 million ticket. Yes, we don't promise in the $1 million range, but it is an opportunity that opens up the freedom to earn, which is really important now. I was talking with a manager at a company in Manhattan recently, and they said that their protocol now going forward is that any person that is 50 and above will not be coming back into the corporate office. That's just the determination they have made, that for safety reasons, they will still remain as employees. They will be working from home, but they're not going to, they're not going back into the office. And any of those of you, which lots of people on the line and lots of people on the playback are going to know that when you work for a company, if you're missing meetings in the office and you're not having those conversations around the water cooler, that you're going to miss a big part of what's going on in the office. It's almost like going deaf or something like that. You're just removed and you don't get all that texture and nuance. And so it's going to be difficult to maintain your edge in that work environment. And I've heard a lot of people that are coming through our programs now that are talking about this as their plan B. That's really the way they're looking at this. This is a plan B for them. One guy said that, I didn't get bumped off in this round, and I still have my job, and my job was remote even when the lockdown happened. So he was used to working that way. But the thing that has changed is he said it could have been so close. If the company would have made a decision in one direction versus another, they could have laid off the team that works in the area that I work. And so they just, pile out of there. You're just all of a sudden somebody flips a switch and you don't have the comfort of that job. And of course, one of the things that we talk a lot about is the great thing about freelancing is you have, 4, 5, 6 clients that you're working with on a regular basis. And then there's no very rare for a situation to interrupt all your income. A client might get merged into another company. Somebody that you're working with might leave the company and go someplace else. And maybe they use you from that new company they're with because they know that using freelancers is a great way to get a job done. And so they come back to you when they work at the other company. But if you want to add more volume to your business or replace a client that goes away for whatever reason, you now know how to do that by going into these online job and project networks. And your income is much more assured. It's like having a 4-engine airplane. You're much less likely to have a really big problem. If one of the 4 engines goes out, you've got 3 other good engines that are flying you along. But if you're in a single engine airplane and that engine goes out, you've pretty much got to get down safely. You don't have a lot of options, and you as a pilot hope that there is a runway there. When I learned how to fly a small plane, you would practice that maneuver, and you'd be there with the instructor and you would be flying along, and he would say, turn here and let's land over here in this city as a practice and that kind of thing. And then he would just reach over and pull the throttle out and say, all right, you've just had an engine failure. Where are you going to land? And that really trains you up on this idea of always be looking for, you want to have three airports within gliding range where you can land. And that's pretty easy to do, especially flying in the United States. And I would imagine the same thing would be true in most of Canada, except some of the wilderness areas. but you always want to be looking for that landing place. And I look at freelancing versus a job is that when you've got a job, you've got a single engine airplane, and if anything goes wrong with that single engine, a lot of untoward stuff can happen. But if you've got a 4-engine airplane, or like the B-52s, you have an 8-engine airplane, you've got lots of ways to keep the funds flowing, keep your activity level up, and that kind of thing. And you just make minor adjustments to what's going on. And you also know how to get those engines started up as well. And so the Microsoft Office component of helping companies produce all the documentation, all the training, and all the things that they need to retrain employees and clients and that kind of thing is a very important way to that we see business coming out of the pandemic will be booming. Now, the other thing that is particularly good and somewhat narrow in its I guess its focus, but very important, is writing procedures, because millions upon millions of procedures are changing all at once in lots of businesses. This is we in our lifetimes, we haven't seen a disruption like this. We're seeing this disruption now that is, coming out of it, creating opportunity to figure out things a little bit better, make things function better, but lots of procedural documentations have to be done. And so I'd like to see if people listening on the call, participating in the call, have you ever had to write policies and or procedures in a business that you worked in? Could be a large corporation, could be a smaller company, could be creating procedures and policies in your own situation where you might be working with a virtual assistant. So if you could just pop in there, have you ever had the need to create policies and procedures in the work that you are doing? I know that at different times in my career that we had to do that there would be new regulations. Donna's saying yes in financial services. Yeah, certainly lots of changes have come along in financial services over the years. And we've seen companies had to adopt and adapt to new regulations to come up with all the good new stuff that's out there, the changes, the increased safety potentially, and I don't know exactly where Donna works in that, but increased safety in the banking system, and increased safety with credit unions, and increased safety with the way things like ATM works and that kind of thing. So, and Sandra says yes, she's also had a situation where she's had to go in and write either policies and procedures or that kind of thing. So yes, lots of that going on. And then there's people like Greg that says no, but they could, given the opportunity. It's just the fact that you've probably worked a few decades in different businesses or nonprofits or for government, and so you understand how things work. And that's yes. And like Donna's talking about in the area of privacy, if for people that work in the medical field, HIPAA was a huge thing. That it's the Health Information Privacy Act, or something along those lines. I used to have to know a lot about that when I was at Oracle, because a lot of our clients were major hospitals, insurance companies, and they want to make sure that that your information is safe and protected, and somebody can't just walk over to a filing cabinet and look at your medical history or that kind of thing. So that's been a big area is if you understand HIPAA, you typically that represented a whole bunch of changes. The interesting thing about HIPAA, and it's funny, in the early days it was called HIPAA, but I guess they felt that wasn't, sent a mixed message, so they changed it to HIPAA to give it more gravitas. But that was a change that came over a 10 or 15 year period, and still changes are being made to that process. What's really remarkable about the time that we live in right now is that this change is being, every business all at once has to make this change. It's not like we have 10 years to figure out how to reopen. It's like it's got to happen now. And there's all the financial pressure and all the operational pressure and all the issues about employees commuting and how close to each other's can employees be in our retail operations. There's all kinds of that need to be figured out and pieced together and put into videos, in some cases audios, in other cases coursework and training, like we do in our Tuesday night calls and our Wednesday night calls and that kind of thing, where we're actually and our Thursday night calls sometimes, where we're actually showing people how to do things. We do a lot of that on our Tuesday night calls. Let me just see if I can get this thing up here, and let's see, and we go through, we talk about things like good job, bad job. Let me just share this with you. I'll take that off. And there we go to share screen. And we are going to share an application window. And so we go through and give examples of different kind of proposals. This happens to be in the category of a proposal do's and don'ts. And one of the things you never want to do when you're working online is say in your proposal or in your cover letter, depending upon what the freelance site you're working in, you never want to say, I'm new to the site. The buyer can see that you're new to the site just by looking at your profile online. They already are 20 steps ahead of you on that. And they get a little frustrated to a lot frustrated if they see somebody say, like in this case, my name is Diane and I'm new to the site. Well, right up at the top of the profile, it says your name is Diane. So the attitude is kind of tell me something I don't know already. And already it says, no jobs performed. And so she's saying, I'm new to the site. And so, the client already knows that before they even got to your pros. So it's very important to focus on how you're going to put this information out there and what's going through the mind of that buyer. They don't like to see this kind of information. They like to see somebody who's succinct, who understands how these systems work. You get right to the point, because they're thinking, if I hire this person, am I going to get lots of redundant information? Are they going to be needy? Am I going to have to call them back and calm them down? And, I'm happy to explain the job or aspects of the job to somebody, but I don't need a needy person in my life. So that's one of the things to know there. Has anybody ever experienced a needy person, either as an employee or a freelancer that you've hired? That's always an interesting question. Just let me know if you had to deal with a needy employee, and how much more time you spend with that person rather than another person who might be, competent, a self-starter, somebody that shows up on time, that kind of thing. That's what freelance buyers are looking for. They're looking for somebody that knows how to play the game. And Greg says, my ex-wife. that's it's a little bit different direction, but yes, that can happen. And so what we're looking for is in the realm of business and in the realm of freelancing, we're looking to lower the people that are needy, that have that immediate demanding, stop what you're doing and help me out here, because that's really a drain on the process of doing business. So as a freelancer, a lot of people think it's about, can I do the job? Yes, I can do the job. It's much more than that. It's about your temperament. It's about how you bring your relationship with that freelance buyer into the equation, and pretty much your freelance job with any job that you do on one of these systems is a trial. It's in some respects it's an extended interview where they're asking you to do a little tiny sliver of what you might wind up doing for them, but what you know and the way you do that little tiny sliver is very important, because it will say a lot about your depth of expertise, the kind of people that you know in the field, the kind of companies that you may have worked for, are all reflected in the quality of that first initial assignment. And that's why that's so important. And when I hear people say that they're working online and they got a $25 job, so they're not really going to spend a lot of time with it, if it's a first job, I say you're thinking about this with your hat on backwards. You're going crazy. That's not what you do. This first job, if anything, that's the one where you really want to show how high powered you are and how you can make progress for that person without a lot of conversation and retraining and questions and saying, well, I forgot this, and I know you sent that to me, but I can't find it in my email, that sort of thing. You just want to be on top of that. And that's a very important concept to get across. So I'm just going to pull up. We had a few questions that carried over from our Tuesday night call, and I'm going to pop those up. And if you're so moved, hit that like button. If you're on YouTube, because we're broadcasting simultaneously on YouTube now, hit that subscribe button, and you'll see when these calls come up. So lots of interesting content that we're sharing now. Sometimes pieces of our Tuesday night meetings that typically only our members would see. But let me just get some of this up here. There we go. And so sometimes we have Q&A that carries over things that we don't have time to answer when we're on the call, and this is a great time to answer some of those questions. So let me just take a minute and look at these. And certainly, if you have questions, I'm happy to answer those in the chat window. We'll all see them, and we'll get to those. So here's an interesting one: is that if you finish your job and get a 5-star review, that's a good thing, but then get busy with work outside of Upwork, and a few weeks go by before you send any proposal, are you penalized for the delay? So have to talk a little bit about the context. Upwork is very good about monitoring your level of activity in the system, and this really makes freelance buyers happy. Does anybody know why that makes freelance buyers happy? Just pop it into the chat window, and I'm happy to give you an attaboy if you get that. That it the activity level of any freelancer has something to do with how engaged that person is with the platform. And if I'm a freelance buyer, I don't want to hire somebody or even have an interview with somebody that says, gee, I haven't been on this system in a while, and I don't remember how to get to that screen. Could you help me with that? They don't want to become your new babysitter. They want to see that the person they're talking to is active in the system. It's important to them. They pay attention to it because the freelance buyer doesn't want to miss have you missing communications. They don't want to send you something, maybe a change to the job or a change in emphasis that you really need to know. They don't want you to read that message a week later after you've already done another big part of that. So that's an important aspect of that to bring to your thinking process. Now, Upwork in particular has this $15 around let's see, I think it's called the Freelancer Plus, and you pay that $15 a month. And we don't recommend that you get that $15 a month thing unless or until you start to bid on jobs, because it doesn't make sense if you're not bidding on jobs. The main benefit of that is on every job you're getting on, just like you have X-ray vision, you get to see the high point, the lowest bid, and the median, the mid-range bid. So that's very helpful to understand how to bid on a job. You might be way off, you might be right in the sweet spot, or anything in between. It helps you do what we call calibration, and that calibration is very important. I've had people bid on jobs and they're bidding, oh, I bid $500 on that job, and I bid $300 on that job, and the job actually was done for $50. So it helps bring people like that down to earth and say, well, maybe this is not the job that is that bigger job. You certainly will find those bigger jobs once your recommendation rating improves, in essence on Upwork, what's called your job success score. But they want to know that you're active in the system. They don't want to hire a freelancer that checks in on the system once a month to see if they got any jobs. They want somebody to get it right away. And of course, when you're setting up your system as a freelancer, you don't have to go in and check it every single day. You can set up email notifications so you get reminded when something happens, or when a buyer selects your proposal, or that kind of thing. So these are all good things. There's a lot of ways to fine tune how much time you have to spend versus how much money you earn. And that's a great activity for this. That's a great way to piece this together. And when you sign up for that $15 a month, Upwork sees that as you being active in the system as well, certainly if you're paying for it. And they can see every time you log in, and they can see every mouse click you make, just like every other site that we go on to. It's no magic that if you click on the swimming fins in Amazon, that for the next week and a half, you see ads on swimming fins on other sites and back in Amazon and that kind of thing. They know what you're thinking, and they keep presenting you with the opportunity to buy that thing. Well, when you pay the $15 a month, you move into a different class of Upwork person, because a huge number of people, millions really, of the people that work on Upwork have a free account. And so over the years, all these systems have figured out that having something, a relatively small amount that you pay every month, sort of weds you more to the system. You're more likely to participate. You're more likely to pay attention to it, that kind of thing. It's the 80-20 rule. So if you want to send the message to your client through the algorithm that you're serious about this, when you start bidding on jobs, and when you start bidding on jobs is also when you start winning jobs, that you have that $15 Freelancer Plus membership. So something good to consider there as you think about that. So I'm interested. I had a conversation the other day with where's the first big vacation you're going to take when we're all free of the pandemic and we all feel like we can travel comfortably, and that may be 6 months down the road, who knows, 3 months, whatever. And one of my places that I'm most interested in going to that I've never been before is Portugal. And International Living has a conference coming up in Portugal in May. So what's that? It's 5, 6, 7 months down the road. But really looking forward to Portugal. Hopes everything has smoothed out. But where are you looking to travel to when you are going to feel comfortable traveling, when you don't have to think of COVID? What do we do? And I can imagine that even on certainly flying before the pandemic, as I traveled internationally, I basically went around the world twice last year. I went to a number of different places, and I would actually wear a mask as I'm traveling. And any frequent flyer knows that, when you're changing environments, I would be going from hot Mexico to cold London in some cases. I wound up in Thailand. I wound up in New York for a few days, and so you're changing all these climates. Plus, you're getting exposed to things. Plus, in line, anybody that's ever been in line before the pandemic knows that you're like a foot away from the person or less in some cases. Greg looks like Panama is the place to go. Panama's gorgeous. Beautiful country, obviously has a Caribbean side and a Pacific side and mountains in between, and just one of the highest quality places to use. Yeah, and Greg is saying they wore a mask in February, and other people on the plane freaked out. And yeah, you kind of get that. I was on a flight in February, and I was actually wearing a mask as well. And the flight attendant on the flight collapsed in a coughing fit right after she served lunch. So, scary times, all pre-pandemic, and we all kind of leaned away from people in the past, leaned away from people that were coughing or that kind of thing. Now we have the mask on and we run to the other side of the room. It's a different world, but we're looking forward to the time when we're back in the saddle, traveling, being able to go places that we like to go, and just enjoying it and not having to worry about it. So that time, I'm hoping, is just around the corner, as they say. Yeah, and a lot of times, if you wear a mask, the flight attendants will ask you if you're sick. And yeah, you want to avoid that. It's one of the things that I love about spending a lot of time in Mexico is you get a lot of alternative treatments that are going on. And there was an interesting story. I'm just looking. I thought I'd share it here. There was let's see, here we go, history. All right, there's a vinegar concoction that is that my acupuncturist in San Miguel de Allende suggested that I take on my flights. And it came along. Let me put this Wikipedia thing, and I found this very interesting. Let me get it into the chat window here. It's called Four Thieves Formula. And I'll put the link right underneath it in Wikipedia. I had never heard of this in all of my years of stumbling around the planet. But what happened is during the medieval period of the plague, there were people that would remove the bodies from the city and bury them outside the city walls, that kind of thing. And particularly, this recipe is hung in the Museum of Paris in 1937, and was said to be the original copy of the recipe posted on the walls of Marseille during the episode of the plague. And they give a specific recipe that has, white vinegar and marjoram and sage and cloves and campanula roots. You can see it there, but you can also buy this in many sort of holistic stores or order it online from Amazon. And the idea was all these people are getting the plague and dying, but sort of the undertakers are carrying these bodies out and burying them outside the city. And one of the things that the undertakers were accused of doing is, stealing things as they were taking the bodies out of the house. So a lot of them were viewed as thieves. They had this horrible, nasty job of taking people outside the barriers of the city and burying them, and they never got sick when everybody else had the plague. And so there was apparently a court action somewhere along the way that some of them were going to go to jail because they'd been stealing stuff out of the houses of their victims and that kind of thing. And in order to get out of the problem of being accused of a thief and going to court and going to jail, what they did is they agreed in exchange for not having to go to jail that they would give everybody this formula, and it helped the immune system and help prevent infection and all that kind of stuff. And so it's in wide use to this day. It's in very wide use in Mexico. Lots of people I've talked about subsequently in Mexico have heard a little bit about it. Yes, and Bob is mentioning, the thieves would steal clothes and jewelry from dead bodies. So they were kind of, on the not a great citizen list. And so they would do that. And long story short, although as a friend of mine says, it's too late for that, is that what you would do is you would take a cotton ball or two, and you would put a few drops on each cotton ball, and then you would put that inside the face mask that we use now. I thought I had one laying around here, but I don't. And you would, by inhaling it, it would somehow help your immune system reject any, any pathogen or anything like that. And so I had been using that for about a year before COVID, and found out that I had a lot fewer sniffles when I did that when I traveled, because that's the worst. You're going someplace for a conference and you get that icky feeling that you're coming down with something, and you're drinking hot water or tea and trying to keep your throat in good shape, because I can talk the leg off a chair and fortunately get paid to do that sometimes. So wanted to make sure that I'm in good form for the clients that are bringing me in on different conferences and things like that. So just did that and had about a year of very much better travel in terms of sinus problems or sneezy or flu or that kind of thing. And I think I figured out in 2019, I basically went around the world twice, in terms of travel. It was a very busy year, and expect us to get that back to that kind of busy year as we roll forward. So the other thing I want to do, this is we're having a little bit of a Halloween party, and I have 2 masks, and I would like to get a vote on which mask you think I should wear to the party. So let me pop this off for a moment, and we'll get the first mask on. Okay. There we go. Virtual mask. A little bit weird around my glasses, but how does that look? All right. So this is mask A. And now we're going to mask B. Oh, my hair's a mess. Let me see here. Better take my glasses off. Okay, there's mask B. What do you think? Put it in the chat window. Even if you're listening to the replay, let me know what mask you think I should wear to the virtual Halloween party. There's still time. Okay. All righty. Hat, spectacles, headset. All righty. Very good. Very good. All right. Appreciate that, Joanna. Very good. Greg. Okay. All right. A little politics in there. We like to steer clear of politics, but boy, it's very hard to steer clear of politics right now. So very good. Well, thanks for all those. Yes, there you go. That's a great one. I have a great picture that I took in Mexico with actually a jackass, and is just walking around with a friend, looking at a potential new apartment that he was going to get, and there were donkeys there, and this donkey came up and just picked me out of a crowd and wanted to be my friend for some reason. So yeah, I kind of like the donkey as well. So very good. All right. Joel, thanks. Excellent. All righty. So if you had a little fun today, be sure to hit that like window on your way out the door. If you're listening to the replay, encourage you to share it with your friends. There's a lot of people thinking about freelancing now. A lot of people, it's a big mystery. It's complicated. What we know is freelancing is different from baby boomers. The advice I would give to somebody that wants to be a freelancer, completely different if you're in your 20s versus if you're in your 50s or 60s or 70s. And so that's what we do here. We help baby boomers go from not freelancing to freelancing. And we have a lot of fun doing it. And for those of you that are on a member in one of our programs, we look forward to seeing you on Tuesday night. And for everybody else, we'll see you right here next Friday. So have a great week freelancing. Have a good one. Take care.